Welcome to Cardboard Box Games. I'm Adam.
I'm Andrew.
And I'm Adam. Today we're testing a new audio setup, but mainly we're talking about Age of Ascension strategy. So let's get started. This is episode 24, and let's start off this week with Card of the Week. Andrew, why don't you start this week?
Okay, so my card is a Mars card. I know, surprising. And it's an action card, and it's called Hypnotic Command.
Hypnotic Command.
Sorry, I can't say it well.
Yeah, it's okay.
It has a playability. For each friendly Mars creature, choose an enemy creature to capture one from their own side, which I think is really good. Me and Dad played, and I was able to put 4 of his amber, stop him from forging his key, and kill most of his creatures and get that amber for myself, and was able to forge a key.
It did really well.
It was amazing.
It worked incredibly well.
That seems amazing.
I love the card.
I thought that in that situation, that card worked really well. Like, you destroyed me with that.
Yeah.
All right, Adam, how about you? What's your card of the week?
My card is a disc creature. It's Yerk.
Oh.
It's a 4-power creature called Yerk, and its playability is choose and discard a card from your hand.
What do you think of that card?
For me, I really love that card because you
Me
get to empty your
too.
hand and draw more cards at the end of your turn.
Some people don't like it. I've
Yeah.
actually heard a lot of people say they don't like it, but
I don't like it either.
for me, it's like if you've got cards in your hand that are situational, cycle those babies out and keep them going. Like
Exactly,
most,
yeah.
Most of the time when I have York, I have to get rid of a card that I like Mimicry that one time, or I don't want to get rid of cards.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people are down on those cards, and there's Yerk, there's Old Yerk, and then there's Ancient Yerk.
Yerk,
There's
yeah.
3 Yerks, and each of them make you discard.
One,
Yours
2,
is
3.
1 and 2 and 3, and then I think Old is 2 and Ancient is 3.
That's
Yep.
correct, yep.
3 is tough, not gonna lie.
It
but
is.
discarding 1, actually, I really like.
But you don't need to discard 3 to actually play Ancient Yerk. You can play them last, you know?
Yeah, that's very true, because you can only discard 1 or 2. You do as much as you can.
Yeah.
The other thing about Yerk that I really like is there are times you have cards in your hand you plan to discard anyway.
True.
So you can remember that you can discard cards of your same house. So I've seen people discard 2 cards and then play Yerk, and they're like, oh, I don't want to discard anything. But really, you can use those cards you discarded earlier to feed the Yerk. And
Exactly,
it's
yeah.
a play mistake I've seen quite a few people make. All right, so my card of the week is a Mars action. It is called Destroy Them All. Play, destroy an artifact, a creature, and an upgrade. This card, I love this card. And it's so much fun when you can, blow up. You know, there's a lot of upgrades that they put on your own creatures. So it's so much fun when you blow up the upgrade on your creature, kill one of their creatures, and then blow up one of their great artifacts. Like, I love this card so much. I can't even say enough for how good this card is. I do think Destroy Them All is incredibly powerful.
It is, yeah.
So anyway, that's our card of the week. Let's move over to our main topic, which is talking about Age of Ascension strategy. And we've played a lot of games. We've played a lot of games with Call of Archons versus Age of Ascension. We played a lot of Age of Ascension versus Age of Ascension.
Yep.
And the first thing to note is that we do think we actually have a couple good Age of Ascension decks. We believe Andrew is the only one to have opened those. I do think some of the ones Adam and I have opened are good. They're just not as good.
Yeah.
We've tried to play a bunch of different ways. And actually, Andrew's Age of Ascension deck put what I would think is one of my better Call of Archon decks down. Like, he actually beat me.
Isn't it like an 86 sass set?
Yeah, mine's an 86 sass. And
Yeah.
I think... So, originally, it felt like there was less steel and control in Age of Ascension. Do you guys agree?
I agree, yes.
I agree completely.
Okay. But Andrew actually found a deck that's got a lot of good
Stealing.
creatures, but also good
Two
stealing.
decks.
2 decks that have a lot of good stealing. So it's not like they don't exist. They're there.
They're just hard to find.
They're just hard to find. Yeah, that's a good point. But anyway, I've really started classifying decks as 3 different types of decks, and I know some people look at them more. And actually, in Call of Archons, I was using internally 5 classifications. But in Age of Ascension, it's really early. And one thing that I've learned is that in Age of Ascension, board presence is so much higher.
It is, yes.
And what I mean by board presence decks, there are lots of creatures, and creatures that just give your opponent a headache. I'm talking creatures that
Whenever you reap, you stun it.
Yeah, or
When
you just can't reap at all, or
Exactly.
like
Or you
Yeah.
can't forge your first key,
Or-
second key,
yeah,
third key.
Has
this-
special abilities on each creature.
those. And I think board presence decks, if you were in an Age of Ascension versus Age of Ascension match, honestly, you look for the best board presence deck combined with how much Amber Generation you think you can get. For the most part, I think that's like the best type of deck that you can actually get is board presence deck when you're doing a sealed match.
Yeah.
The second type of deck is Amber Generation. So these are decks that literally don't care about board. Maybe they have a little bit of board control in some creatures, but really all they care about is like just getting as much Amber as possible. And you just ignore what's happening, but they can get locked down, because I had one of these in my last sealed tournament where I felt like I was just racing, trying to get as much Amber as possible. But when they lock you down from reaping, then you end up in a situation where you can't really deal with it. So those exist, but I think they're actually harder to play against the board presence decks now because of the tools that they have.
Yeah.
All right, the third deck is a control deck. The control deck is Amber control and board control. Typically, in the past those were shadows and disc houses. And one thing that I've learned is Amber control actually gets destroyed by the racing decks, the fast Amber Generation decks. This isn't universally 100%.
Yeah.
But the Amber control decks do really good against the board presence decks. So if you are an Age of Ascension versus Age of Ascension deck in tournament, and you find a board presence deck, your worst matchup are people that have a deck like you've got, where they can steal just so much. And
They blow up the board.
they have ways to blow up the board a little bit too. So they've got a lot of stuff like that. So anyway, that's sort of what I've been thinking about, and that's helped me kind of understand when I look at a deck, trying to figure out what type of deck it is and how to play it. What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah.
I totally agree with you. I totally noticed that there's more controlling decks now with a bunch of creatures heavy. Because my first 3 Age of Ascension decks, I just got completely huge into creatures, no stealing at all.
Yeah.
I got 1 board wipe probably, I believe, and it has the creatures that stops reaping, and it does abilities to kill the opponent's creatures, and yeah.
Board wipes are so important in Age of Ascension. It's actually really incredible, how much board wipes matter.
Yeah. There's so many creatures now.
So Adam and I played some matches. So he took what he thought was his best board presence deck, right?
Yes.
Actually, he played 2 of them.
I played 2 of them, yeah.
And we played against my deck's called She Who Contrives Resolution. It's an Untamed Shadows and Sanctum House deck. And this deck obliterated you. I was able to get, I have board wipes. I have Amber control. I had all the answers for everything that you were doing. And I obliterated you. So at that point, we're like, okay, we definitely see that Amber control or control decks are better than the board presence decks, because we tried a few different variations. Starting first, starting second. We tried making sure we're mulligan strong.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then Andrew came in with his Age of Ascension controlling deck. But the thing about Andrew's, and I think, when I say these are 3 different types of decks, I think decks can have multiple tiers of each one of these things. So a deck can be an Amber Generation and a control deck. It can also be a board present deck and an Amber control deck, which I feel like Andrew's actually was. So I think it was Amber control first, but a really strong second board presence deck.
I agree with that.
Because he ended up with so many creatures on the board, but yet he still had all the answers for capturing and stealing and doing all that stuff. So my deck struggled against that a little bit, because my main board wipe kills things with 3 power or higher, and a lot of his stuff was in right below that for things that he was doing with me.
Yeah.
So Umbras and stuff Ronnie, the new shadow guy. So he ended up beating me 1 game, and I beat him 1 game.
It was very close.
But it was a very close game, and again, we're still learning our deck, so there could have been misplays on both sides, but the games were close, down to the wire each time. So that made me realize that my deck actually struggles against board presence and control. So if it's a control first, board presence second deck, my deck does not do very good. My deck also struggles against Amber Gen. So if you end up a deck that you feel is like quick amber generation. I feel like my deck struggles against that.
Yeah.
So that was really interesting knowledge for me. So when you and I were practicing before we had brought Andrew's decks in the mix, did it feel like Age of Ascension was weaker?
It felt like yeah.
No
It
matter
felt
what
like,
deck you tried, it felt like you couldn't win, right?
Yeah, it totally felt like Age of Ascension was horrible. I kind of started hating Age of Ascension, but then well, I was on a huge losing streak.
Yeah.
I
got a little tilted, yeah.
Yeah. And then when Andrew came in, he just destroyed, like, could actually stand a chance against that deck. And I'm like, maybe it's not so bad after all.
No, Age of Ascension's great. It's just different.
It is
Different,
just different. And we're still learning how to use Age of Ascension, so we're still getting used to the new things also.
And honestly, I feel like, to be completely honest, there is less control in Age of Ascension. Less control as we've typically thought about it. I believe board presence is more prevalent.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you have a much higher chance of opening a creature-heavy board presence deck than you do a control deck in Age of Ascension. And that's with our... How many decks have we got? 12, 15, 18, 21 decks that we've opened or so far?
Mm-hmm.
Because or no, 2, 4, 6, 18 or so?
Yeah.
18, I think, because we did 2 at the tournament.
18, yeah.
Yeah. So 18 decks so far. But I mean, at the same time, I think board presence decks are incredibly good, especially if you lock their reaping down, because
Reaping's rough.
if you get your board set up against any type of deck, it's hard to beat them if they don't have a board wipe. So that has brought me over to another point that I think is board wipe decks are going to be much more popular than decks that don't have them.
Yeah,
And I'm talking good board wipe. So
like destroy each undamaged creature.
Coward's End.
yeah,
Or destroy each
Save the
damaged
pack.
creature.
and undamaged creature is important because Sanctum has so much armor. I have destroy each damaged creature in my deck, and I literally could never use it
And also as a good
because I couldn't hurt them.
And also, the Mars creature 5 armor, the worm,
Collector Worm?
Yeah.
Collector Worm's
Collector Worm.
ridiculous.
and people are gonna have a lot of that too.
And your deck had the Collector Worm in there, so that was the thing that I also thought was interesting, is Collector Worm was so good against me because any creatures I did get out, you kept just archiving them.
Mm-hmm.
It was just rough. And he also has the Drummer Knot Ginger Chieftain combo in there. But not only that, he's got Routine Jobs and Nerve Blast and like I forgot. He's got like Untamed guys that actually can steal. You've got the Mars card that can make me capture my own Amber and then kill it.
Yeah.
It was a lot of Amber taken from me. Oh, and the Swindle, I think it is, which is just Alpha Omega Steel 3.
Yeah.
That's
kinda
amazing.
It's painful when you can only play that one card, but at the same time, like stealing 3
Well, didn't
is
you mimicry
huge.
that?
Yeah, I did mimicry his. I looked up to make sure I could do that, but yeah, I mimicried his Swindle so I could get back in the game.
It actually worked.
It
Yeah, it
does
works.
work.
As long as it's the very first thing you do.
But I still was able to come back.
It
It
still
works.
has to be Alpha, and then it ends my turn. So, it just becomes a copy of that card.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it still works.
it still worked.
Mm-hmm.
So, I know you guys played some KeyForge Age of Ascension. You had a Fagin deck you played. How did your Fagin deck do against his Age of Ascension?
I lost the first round, and then I won the second round.
What do you think was the hardest about Andrew's deck?
It just went super fast against my deck.
I can
It
go
came
through my
out really
deck
fast.
really fast.
Like drawing cards, you can go through it fast?
Yeah, with my
And he had huge, gigantic creatures right away, and synergies with those creatures. It's
Yeah.
just pretty hard to compete with.
I looked at the deck and it has no it has plus 11 synergy.
Wow.
And
There's
it
a
has-
lot of synergy in
And
your
it
deck.
has 0 and
Anti-synergy.
yeah,
Yeah.
which is really good.
That is really good.
The stats of the cards are not good, but the synergy is amazing. That's the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, the SAS seems to be updated on decks of KeyForge now when we checked it out.
Yeah.
Because a lot of your decks are in the 80s now for Age of Ascension, which is cool to see. I do think there's some strategy that we haven't learned yet with how to play creature-heavy boards. I think there's strategy that we need to figure out for how to play against it and strategies for how to play with it. So, like, I almost feel like when you have a heavy board, the rushing more cards when you're a board presence deck doesn't even matter anymore. I think you're more play what you can, but like just use your creatures that are on the board.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Agreed.
Like when you have 6 creatures of one house and you have like a whole handful of
Yeah.
different house, just reap with those creatures.
Yep. Keep
Agreed.
your opponent back a little bit. Like make sure that your opponent is
Like,
not
take out-
catching up with you on board presence.
Yeah.
And just like Mars guys, like there's the guys that reap and give you extra amber.
I
Like,
love those guys.
there's a lot of like really good cards that, like Sir Marrows, that makes your opponent anytime they reap, you capture their amber. Like that's somebody you have to deal with a board presence
course.
deck,
Yes.
which can be hard.
That's why I think when you go against heavy decks, always have an artifact or a creature that can like stun creatures when they reap or kill them. You know, like the artifact that is in Dix that stuns your creatures and also the opponent's creatures when you reap.
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, I do too.
I played against that one time. Yeah. And there's a lot of creatures that do that too, which is actually weird to me. I wanted to talk a little bit about that. Isn't it weird that Mars logos both have creatures that
And
make...
this.
And this has the artifact, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
This has artifacts.
And
And
then
also a creature.
This
that
has a creature makes you sacrifice your guys, but not stun. Or do they?
sacrifice.
Sacrifice.
Pretty much.
Isn't it weird that those 3 houses all like have been so anti-reaping?
That is pretty weird.
Like anti-reaping wasn't really a thing in the first set.
It wasn't.
Yeah, I think people just got. I don't know. I just think people didn't really like all these reaping creatures. I'm guessing.
I
Because
feel
why
like-
would they change that? Like, why would they make it against that?
I just think they did that for because like a special story maybe for it. Because like you were saying in our earlier videos, like special storylines between each set and stuff.
Yeah, so it almost seems like they're working together to like.
Yeah, to like
Stop
stop the
reaping.
opponents from like gaining so much amber or whatever.
And Sanctum has the like if your opponent reaps, you capture it type effects. And they also
Yeah.
have that one guy that's like you just can't reap at all.
Exactly.
So they're anti-reap as well. Brobnar doesn't have any of that. There's no Brobnar cards that I've seen yet that are anti-reap that I've seen.
I don't think so.
Mars definitely does. They have a few. They have a few different things.
Yeah.
And you've actually had 2 or 3 of them on the board against me at a time, and it's like, oh, I just can't. And eventually, I just was like, all right, I'm reaping either way. My guy's just gonna get stunned. It don't matter.
Yeah,
It's,
whatever.
be okay. The worst one that I played against is a card that just doesn't let you reap at all. That one's hard. All right, so
Yeah.
I guess going forward, like, what would be your number 1 tip that you would give for people that are just starting to play Age of Ascension?
Try to get good decks that go against big creatures. I think that's the main.
So when you're picking like a deck in like a sealed tournament, you look for decks that have ways to control big creatures.
Yes, I think
Of
so.
course.
Because big
I think so,
creatures right
too.
now, it's a common thing. Every deck,
Drummernauts and like
Ginger Chieftain.
Senior Chieftains, like all those combos with
Bearson
creatures.
Joya.
It's like, yeah, just gotta watch out for that stuff.
What about you?
The first advice I would give to someone is try to find a deck with board presence and way to clear people. Because, in my opinion at least, I love having ways to stop opponents like from the board and amber. So like Gatekeeper is really good, and other cards like that I really like.
Yeah.
So like try to find decks with those combinations that help you stay on top of the opponent and like hammer them down.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think the one thing in a sealed tournament, say they've given you 2 decks, I think it's important to know your matchups. So my advice to you would be, try to classify your deck and how you want to play it, and then very quickly be able to look at how your opponent is playing, so that you understand how to approach the battle.
Agreed.
Because I misjudged in that last Age of Ascension deck a few times what type of deck my opponent had, and it cost me. And I also think I agree with you, Andrew. Part of like a very important card to have is ways to kill big creatures.
Agreed. Like the Sanctum card that kills 3 and higher.
I think that card is insanely
Way.
good now, and I'm super happy to have that in my good Caller Rockhounds deck because that has saved me a few times. But it is really good.
It is amazing.
I mean, it kills your own stuff too, but that's fine
Whatever.
because you're usually losing in board presence. But honestly, like if you're a racing deck, know that you're just not going to be good against certain decks. If you're a board presence deck, you go all in on just utilizing your board as much as possible. If you're a control deck, you need to figure out how to play that middle ground where you're gaining amber, but also keeping your amber or your opponent's amber one step behind yours.
Agreed.
Because you can't deal with amber control. You cannot deal with massive amounts of amber that your opponent has gained. So you have to like find that balance. You can't let their board get out of control. And if you play that sweet spot just right, you can win. Now there are cards you may get lucky with like Doorstep to Heaven and Too Much to Protect potentially, which I haven't seen. I don't.
There is.
I've seen like a couple. Protect.
Yeah.
Okay.
We
So,
need to get one of those decks.
but I mean, I definitely have a deck with it in it. But I mean, those decks are ways to take care of like people that gain a lot of amber. But people gain a lot of amber in Age of Ascension once their board gets in order, like a lot of amber.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to be key to us being able to like
Stop them.
yeah. So I think it's one of those three decks. You figure out which type you have. Understand that your deck may need to pivot. You may end up deciding that you start off the game as a board presence deck, but then you find that your opponent is playing a certain strategy. So now you switch your strategy to now you're going to be amber generation, or you might now be control. Like you need to figure out like what degrees and where your deck can actually pivot. And I think that's super important in this game. And I think that's part of like what sets a good player from a great player is knowing when to pivot your gameplay strategy and knowing if your deck can do that or not. I think that's very important.
Agreed. I do agree with that.
All right, what's our plan for this coming week? Any KeyForge plans?
Is there going to be a tournament this week?
I haven't seen
I don't
any
think
yet.
so. No.
We're gonna try to I should reach out. I know somebody messaged me the other day and said they reached out to the game store and they're trying to get like weekly chainbound events up and running. That'd be fun.
That'd be awesome.
That would be fun.
It'd be really fun to be able to get those going again.
They need to do that.
We only had 14 people at our sealed event for the release, which was pretty good showing, but
it's
not great.
better than
I expected
one.
more.
I expected more too.
It's better than one than last couple times, you know?
Yeah.
One guy showed up.
Yeah.
Got free metal keys.
That's because I was thinking with sealed, people would want to be there more. Is sort of what I was
Agreed, yeah.
thinking.
Yeah. Sealed new decks, like you would think.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. So I think for me, it's like I really want to like narrow it down and practice like classifying a deck and figuring out how to play it right away. And I think part of that will be like doing some more Age of Ascension versus Call of Archon deck, so I can kind of see what it's like to take a Call of Archon's creature heavy deck and play it against a board presence deck on Age of Ascension and see what kind of matchup that ends up having.
Yeah.
To me, right now, it feels creatures are better in Age of Ascension. I know that's an absolute statement, but there are just creatures that do way worse things in Age of Ascension than in Call of Archons. So, I feel like board presence decks in Call of Archons versus board presence decks in Age of Ascension, that matchup would be super favored for Age of Ascension.
It would
That's
be.
my theory, and I'd like to test that out a little bit, see if that's true or not.
There's one question I have.
Yeah.
Me and my brother Andrew here. We were checking out the decks of KeyForge
Oh yeah.
at the highest stacks, you know, and we were scrolling over them, and all of them said Age of Ascension and Call of Archon decks.
Both
like
combined.
cards in the one deck.
Yeah.
So we were looking at this one deck and it said Call of Archon symbol and Age of Ascension symbol on it.
That probably means that card is in both sets.
Yeah, but when
That's what I
so
said.
Smith, it did not have an Age of Ascension symbol on it, even though it is in Age of Ascension.
Oh, maybe they're
Yeah.
not updated or something like that.
So I was super
Maybe they
confused
ju-
about that.
Maybe they just made a mistake. They're still probably trying to figure out how they can work the new two sets combined. They didn't even like perfectly fit Age of Ascension, Age of I forgot.
But also
Yeah.
Call of
Bait and
Archon.
Switch
Call of
also
Archon,
had
yeah.
Call of Archon symbol, even though we had Bait and Switch in our Age of Ascension decks.
Yeah,
So-
it's kind of messed up right now.
Yeah, they probably just got some mistakes in there. I haven't noticed that personally. I think
But we do think there was an Age of Ascension deck that is a 104 SAS.
There's two of them we found.
Yeah, two.
really.
Two 104 SAS. And they look amazing. Both, I think they're both Mars.
They're both Mars.
And
yeah.
the Mars was it could have been better.
The Mars didn't seem that good, but the other houses seemed really good.
Yeah.
I'll have to take a look at those decks. So, what do you guys think about? I don't even know if I told you this, but it's been implied that there's a good digital version of KeyForge coming out at some point, sooner than later. That was kind of the way it was said.
Good.
That's very exciting.
I'm super excited about that.
Because the Crucible, I really like Crucible, but I don't like the graphics on Crucible that much. I know one guy made it, and it's pretty hard to do all that stuff, but I'm more intrigued by like MTG Arena and Pokemon.
Same
Yeah.
here.
Yeah, I agree with
I
that.
want a good digital version of the game. So like I want there to be a PC version of this game out in the worst way ever.
Is the company that made KeyForge making the digital?
Either that or they
Fantasy
contracted it.
Fighters?
I think they're behind it because they're the ones that mentioned it. So Richard Garfield said it in an interview. Implied. They didn't officially announce it. So this may not be coming yet. But I would find it hard to believe that they're not making something like that.
Hopefully they are. Hopefully.
This game's got to be one of their most popular games. So it sounds like they are, and they pretty much have implied that it's coming. I hope it comes this year. Hopefully we can get into the beta soon. Like I would love to be in the beta to start playing that game.
Yeah.
Super excited about being able to take decks and play online in hopefully a good way, like with a nice polished interface and everything. Super lucky to have the Crucible, but man, to have a really good quality one would be awesome.
Yeah,
That would be really awesome.
Not to say the Crucible's not.
Crucible is
Good quality.
amazing. Like
Yeah, the Crucible's amazing, but I want one that's like of the style of like MTG Arena.
like
That's
whoever
what I
made
want.
Crucible, like they are awesome.
They are absolutely. And actually, I haven't even checked. I haven't played on there in a while, but have they updated for Age of Ascension yet?
I don't know.
I haven't
Okay.
checked.
I haven't played.
No.
Like when Age of Ascension first came out, I tried a few times, and people were playing with broken decks, and then there was only like 12 games going, so I haven't really checked back.
Yeah, not
since
many
then.
people are playing. I've been trying to play some games, and it take forever for me to actually play.
It seems
a
to
game.
have died off a little bit, and I think it's because they didn't have Age of Ascension on there.
That might be it.
People want to play Age of Ascension right now.
And they also add sealed too to.
I do like
Crucible.
the sealed. I've played sealed on there quite a bit.
Same.
Me too.
It's fun. It's pretty.
You just get a random deck and go like. It's a deck that's randomly already in their universe.
Oh,
They've already
yeah.
registered.
That's
So
pretty
it's
cool.
not like they're creating a deck. They just are giving you a deck.
It would be funny if you got the deck that you have and you get to play with it to seal.
That would be really crazy.
That would be.
That'd be
Out of
unfair.
all those decks, that'd be very low odds.
Be like,
to get that.
Oh, I got my deck. Haha.
So for me, I think what we need to do this coming week is we need to just work on like fine tuning our Age of Ascension skills.
Yeah.
And just
Practice
keep playing a bunch, and hopefully we can find. I've actually recruited a lot of people at work into playing now, so my group at work during lunch is getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and every once in a while someone else like joins in. So we're
That's awesome.
all right. So I was just saying that I think it would be fun if I could get more people involved, and it'd also be awesome if I could get like a small percentage of each sale that I've helped encourage. But
Yeah.
honestly, I'm just doing it because I want the community of KeyForge to get bigger. And I'm trying to encourage people from my work to go to the tournaments when they have them at KeyForge Game.
It would be cool if your company would like buy decks and then you guys would do tournaments to see if the new decks like sealed.
They would never. My company would never do that. But
They are nice though.
they are nice, but they would never buy us KeyForge decks.
Well, if you get it where like 50% of the company plays, then
I'm never gonna
probably.
get that big of a number. I'm just slowly trickling people in, and I'm getting like new people that have never played before playing together. And I just would recommend that to everyone else too. Like try to find people to play, and it's a ton of fun. It's really really fun.
Yeah.
Any closing thoughts?
Nah, I think that's it.
Only thing I gotta say is hopefully our audio is in good shape. I know there's a little bit of background noise, but I'm hoping that doesn't come through in our audio here.
Yeah.
But we'll give it a test and see what happens, and just know that we're working on making it better every single week.
Yeah.
And see you guys next time.
Keep gaming.
Bye guys.
Keep it going, game.